In this Grasshopper tutorial, I want to use the Maelstrom component and show you how you can use it to produce this pattern, which is basically a pattern based on an optical illusion. So you can see that I can change the point, change the pattern, change the number of these sections. Then we can control this part, which we can change the number of the divisions. And as you can see, we can control the tangents, which will make the Bezier span. So you can see that I can control these numbers and produce the optical illusion. Okay, first of all, if you're new to this channel, I'm going to put a video up here which you can watch and know more about Grasshopper and how it works. And let's get started from scratch. Okay, so what I want to do to produce that pattern is first we have to make those curves so we can make those arcs or maybe that span on these red curves. So what I want to do is to first make simple lines, and we can use the polar array tool to make these lines and then use the Maelstrom to simply produce the curves. So that is going to be easy, and what I'm going to do is to go to the vector and use this construct point tool. Let's just put the bifocals plugin so you can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to give this an x coordinate, so let's just type a number here, give this to the x, and we can increase or decrease that. Okay, then I'm going to make a polar array of this point, so let's just type polar array. You can also find that in the transform and in the array section. So here it goes, and we're going to give the point to the geometry here. Then we have to give the count, so I'm going to make maybe 6 to 18. So let's just make this, and we can increase those points. And now we can make a line. So I'm going to go to the curve section, use this line, and the start point is going to be 0, 0, 0. So I'm going to set this to 0, and the end is going to be these points. So here we just made the lines which we need here, and we can increase the number of them and also the legs here. Okay. Now what I want to do is to use the Maelstrom here. So I'm going to go to the transform section in the Morph, and you have to have Rhino 6 installed to have this component because it's not in Rhino 5. And I'm going to pick up this Maelstrom and put it in the screen on the canvas to work with it and bend these lines to produce the pattern. So this is easy. We can just give the line to the geometry. The geometry we want to make the spin. So let's just turn everything off and go here. Okay, the plane we are producing the Maelstrom is in the XY plane, which is fine because we want to work this on the XY plane. We can just extract that and turn it off so you don't see that plane. Okay, the first radius and the second radius is basically two radiuses we define to make the Maelstrom, right? So we will have this R1, assume that this is an R1 and this is the R2, and this is the range of the Maelstrom components. So we can just define, you don't have to give this a 0 because if you just give a 0 to this, it's not going to work. And you can see that I can decrease that, but when I just put this to 0, it's not going to work. Okay, so you can see, let's just increase that number, and here we go. You can see that when we increase that, let's just give the second one so you can understand this. Okay, you can see that this is the radius for R1, and this is the second radius R2, which the Maelstrom is functioning. So now we can decrease or increase that if we want, and we can just increase that so we just reach all of that curve. So let's increase this one and put it at work. Here we go. Okay. So the angle is based on radians. As you can see here, it's pi divided by 2. So what I want to do is to simply just type a pi, give this to the angle, and now we can make a number between 0 and 1. Basically, it's smaller than 0.5 because we want half of the pi to rotate. It's 90 degrees if you just put this to 0.5. That means that this is going to rotate the curves 90 degrees, okay? So you can just change the number from 0 to 1 pi or 2 pi if you want. So this is basically a number for the twisting function of the Maelstrom. So if you want to make this a rigid, you can just set this to true, but it's not going to produce the curves, so I'm going to make that false. Now we have these curves, which we can see here. We have them produced by Grasshopper, and what we want to do is to make the circles or the arcs on this. You can use different methods to produce this, but I'm going to use a method which is basically a simple one and can give you a view of how Grasshopper works in just a minute. Okay, so what I want to do is to go to the curve section and use the divide curve tool. You can just divide it. You can also use the division divide distance if you want to have a division based on distance. So what I want to do is to show you you can use these two divide curve based on distance, and it's not really different, but it's going to be a little bit different at the curves we produced at the patterns. It was like this. Okay, so what I want to do is to first of all make a span something like that. Okay, so when we divide this to maybe 20, what I need is going to the curve section and going to spline and use this Bezier Span tool. Okay, and if I just use this, you can see that it has a start point, an end point, and the tangent. So let's just draw this one. If we have a curve like this, you can define the start point, you can define the end point, you can define the start tangent, and you can define the end tangent, right? So what we want to do, the tangent is not really hard, we have it here, but if we want to give this point to the start point and give the tangent here, the problem here is that we don't have an endpoint. So how can we do this? We can simply just use the shift list. And if you don't know what I'm doing, basically I'm shifting the number of the curves. So if this is 0 and this is 1, for those who don't know about the groups in the index and those things, I'm going to put a video up here about flattened graph and those things. Better to watch that video to understand more about this. So assume that this is the first curve, this is the second curve, and this is the third one, right? When we shift list based on 1, if we shifted one index, what's going to happen is that this one is going to be 0, this one is going to be 1, and this one is going to be 2, right? So it's basically just shifting the index, and then we can say this is the end of the zeros. So it's going to be like that, and 1 is going to be like this, and so on. So this is really easy. I'm going to put this in the list, shifting 1, and the wrap is true. That means that if it shifts all to the end, it's not going to delete the last index. Again, we're going to divide that, and now give this at the end, and give this a tangent. Okay, so you can see it's producing something, but the tangent is not really good for the results. So what we can do is to simply go to the math and use a multiplication for the tangent. So I'm going to multiply these tangents and make it bigger so we can have better results. And here we go. So this is the start tangent and this is the end tangent, and you can see that we can control that. Let's just turn everything off, turn this. Okay, we can just decrease this. Let's just turn the curves on. Here we go. So you can control that by simply controlling this multiplication and producing different results. That's it. So now we can simply just change the numbers. Here we go. We can change the radius if we want. Here it goes. Now we can change the number, and then we can just bake these in curves or make a pipe from this. Maybe just simply make a pipe so I can give this a view of how it looks, and 0.25%. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you in this tutorial to understand how Maelstrom works. You can just use this for a 2D design, but we can also use it for a 3D design. But because it's working on a plane, it's suitable for 2D curves and those things. So if you want to also know more about Grasshopper, learn it, you can also enroll in our course. I'm going to put the lessons up here. We are also going to add a tree in Anemone for the course. So be sure to enroll in our course if you want to learn more about Grasshopper, and we are going to add weekly videos from now on. Okay, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel, hit the like button if you like this video, and remember to comment. What do you think about the Maelstrom component in Grasshopper? Do you have any ideas? I want to know what you think you can make with this in Grasshopper for architecture or design. Doesn't really matter, but we can have a brainstorming on this for the Maelstrom. Okay, and see you next time.